Da-dum, dum, da-dum. Da-dum, dum, da-dum. What is up, AKAPADers? That is my Terminator intro. I hope you enjoy it. I am Peter A. DeLuca. I am your host. I'm your pop culture robot that is guiding you right now through the entire Terminator franchise outside of the novels and comic books. We are just mostly doing, or just solely doing, web series, like today, TV series. That's right. People forget that Terminator had a live action TV series in 2009, and we're also detailing the movies. Now, my original intent was to lead into Terminator Dark Fate, and that's becoming increasingly difficult. I'll get into some details on that later in a little bit, but hey, let's hit that intro and talk the Sarah Connor Chronicles from Fox. Fox made I'll say it again. Fox made a Terminator TV show, and most people forget about it. Just about everyone. I'll talk to you soon. Yeah, so I just had to hit that point home. I had to hit the point that the Terminator had a live action TV series that is completely forgotten. I mean, this is maybe forgotten more than the web series, and this is all around 2009. This was like a little bit of a forced renaissance of Terminator, and a lot of people were excited. Like I would say, more people were excited for Terminator Salvation and Terminator Sarah Connor Chronicles than they were for Terminator Genesis, and certainly Terminator Dark Fate. I think Terminator Dark Fate 2, just some people seemed a little burned out from the franchise, like non-committal type stuff. I think there's something when you have like a Harry Potter and you have a Lord of the Rings and even the Star Wars, and that the and I would say the Marvel Cinematic Universe falls victim to this. Victim in a good way. It kind of creates a slave mentality within the audience, and they, if the audience knows that the filmmakers in the studio and the talent around it are committed to future movies, then like they'll invest more into it. Now, this isn't always the case, but I just feel like Terminator somewhat needed that. I think Terminator, either Salvation, Terminator 3, Terminator Genesis, Terminator Dark Fate needed a quick sequel to start happening. And I think every single time these studios, when they go into the Terminator, they spend so much money. And all but one, all but Salvation one, got Schwarzenegger. Schwarzenegger's going to take up a chunk of your budget regardless. And it's like, these films are so expensive to begin with. I mean, we're talking, baseline $200 million if you're lucky. And it's kind of funny because these Terminator movies do have, each one has incredible special effects. I'm talking even going back to the 1984 Terminator. The modern day ones are just strictly spectacular. I mean, like it's even when you watch Genesis, that's going to be our next episode, 259. Genesis, it's amazing. It's amazing what they do with these special effects, and this kind of leads into a trap, because Terminator does take place modern day, outside of Salvation. So why is it so expensive? Why is this? It's because the special effects aren't even to the level, I would even argue, of a Transformers movie, where a Transformers movie, every single frame, you have something that's very expensive, special effects wise. Terminator, you can get away with a lot, and that's very clear with the Sarah Connor Chronicles. I'm going full circle here. I had so many revelations. Why I roughly got through season 1, and I'm not going to go into details and go into spoilers. The whole series, if you subscribe to Amazon Prime, it's available on IMDb streaming service with commercials. Then you don't get too many commercials, and yet you can start watching the series. I watched roughly 10 episodes. Season 1 is 9 episodes, and that was somewhat successful. It was averaging just about 1 million viewers, and the premiere episode premiered, I think, Sunday night, and then it moved to Monday. And season 2 got canceled because it was the audience got cut in half. But the funny thing is, though, I remember being around people when they were watching the show, and a lot of people around me seemed to enjoy it. They seemed to like the show from week to week. Now, that doesn't mean it's a great show. I don't have much of a mind when it comes to when it comes to like this type of storytelling, this type of performance, this type of production. TV shows kind of bore me. They frustrate me. It's hard for me to really get behind them, and there's all kinds of really good reasons for this. mostly because they're not very cinematic, and I love the cinema within movies. I love the quality of the music. I love the quality of what's happening on the frame, and even the performances, and like TV production is just a separate beast. It is. Some people have a mind for it. They're drawn to it. I'm not. This even goes with streaming now, like Netflix, and I kind of want to watch The Boys on Amazon Prime, but I can't. I just can't bring myself to it. I just can't bring myself to sit down and watch 10 hours of something. There's other things I'd rather do, like this podcast, like talking to you. So so this series, let's just break through a little bit of the plot, because this series begins, and it was a true got me. It was a gotcha moment, because they opened the series with a dream by Sarah Connor, which is in character. The character dreams, and Terminator kills John Connor in school, and I was almost like, holy crap, is because I remember a lot of the advertising. If you look at the thumbnail for this episode, it's the advertising of the girl who was like part Terminator, and they were pushing that hard. They were pushing not your typical Terminator, not your typical giant, bodybuilder. They wanted something different. And so a lot of times right now, like when people criticize Dark Fate as being woke, I'm not saying that the movie's not woke. I'm not saying that the movie may not have a agenda. I have yet to see it. I'm going to, reserve judgment on all of those until I see it. And keep in mind too, just was a lot of the same attitude as Solo. And I just feel like Solo is not woke at all. I feel like the biggest issue with Solo is the droid character, Lando's droid character, takes you a little bit out of the movie during a critical escape action sequence. The second critical escape action sequence of the movie. So, it's not really that the droid did what it did. It's almost like the timing of it. It's just, and it does throw you off because there's even like logic at play, and that's a lot of a lot of the ideas about wokeness that frustrate people. It's a break in logic a lot of the times, and our filmmakers and storytellers make these concessions to prove these other points that are somewhat mute. They're somewhat meaningless because they're not a part of the narrative. They're not a part of the continuity, and no one is saying like don't invite these ideas into what we're seeing. People just want it done in a better way. I'll say that. Woke entertainment needs to be better. It just needs to be entertaining. I believe we're in the beginning phases of wokeness and entertainment, and we all know what some of the narrative cliches, tropes, we all know what to avoid, we all know what to accentuate, because it's still relatively new. And I feel like that point needs to be made, especially when it comes to Terminator Sarah Connor Chronicles, because this is essentially a woke show before woke was a thing. So if we sit down and we watch it, we simply can enjoy it. We can enjoy it because it's just trying to be different. That's all. No agenda. It's trying to be different. So they push the female Terminator hard. So I'm watching the beginning of this movie, of this TV show, and I'm just saying to myself, I'm like, holy crap, is the focus the girl Terminator, and they ignore John Connor? What I wouldn't be surprised, because they do challenge what you think you know about John Connor throughout the entire series. It's relatively common, which makes some of these other movies very interesting. Now, the overall plot is, we have a Terminator who manipulates a biochemist or a bioengineer to get different skins. So the Terminator can be different people. We have a army or multiple soldiers from the future sent into the past. And, they're trying to find each other. One of them is David Alan Grier. I hope I'm remembering that name right, from 90210 fame. He plays like the cousin or brother of Kyle Reese. Sarah Connor has an ex-fiance that is getting mingled. We have an FBI agent that is slowly realizing how real everything Sarah Connor spoke about is, like how much of a reality it is. And we have other characters throughout the series who are slowly discovering Sarah Connor is not crazy. Sarah Connor is telling the truth. We have a constant portrayal of Sarah Connor, somewhat in backstory of how crazy she is and how, like how much stuff she blows up. Sarah is very dogmatic. Sarah moves her son around, her and her son. This is a lot like T3 Rise of the Machines. They're wanderers, they're nomads. They go from town to town, they take on different jobs, they get by. So, it's a great show because, we're kind of watching the discovery of the truth of Sarah Connor in more than one way, more than one fashion. And it makes a very interesting narrative. It makes a very interesting thread. I can't get into why parts of the show didn't hit. I just, sometimes, because it's TV, I'm a little bit extra bored. So maybe it just didn't measure up. It could have even came down to people just don't want it. Like maybe people would have, would have been better with a miniseries or, like a 10, but networks aren't built like that. Networks are built on multiple series. They have to sell advertising. So, it's a business first. So I don't really know what some of the disconnect is when it comes to Terminator, Sarah Connor Chronicles. I just know, like I had a couple of revelations watching this, and one of the big revelations was next to Star Trek, Terminator is like the best science fiction story and franchise you could ever tell. And because Star Trek just does so much, and Star Trek is diverse, and even like Star Trek Discovery being more action driven, it can be thought provoking. It can challenge you. You can do religion in Star Trek. And you can do all of these things too in Terminator. You can do most of that stuff in science fiction, which makes it so different than horror, which is why science fiction fans are so different than horror fans. And and doing this back to back with the 31 Days of Dread, I'm very much seeing that. I'm understanding the mental model of both fan bases. But so there's all this stuff, right? And Star Trek is just expensive. Star Trek is expensive to do. You need a room full of people. You need special effects and you need a budget. Despite Terminator being so expensive, movie-wise, like throughout its entire history, outside Terminator in 1984, we can go low budget with Terminator and we can go high budget with Terminator. That alone makes it one of the most unique franchises in history. And it's funny how little the low budget part of the franchise, the low budget feature of the franchise, has been explored. And I got a real sense of that when I was watching this show. It was, I don't want to say it was euphoric, but it was very eye-opening. It made me appreciate it so much more. So what do I think of the plot? What do I think of the story? Look, episode to episode, things move, the chains move forward. FBI guy finds this, FBI guy gets caught in the fire, FBI guy, confronts Sarah Connor. Sarah Connor's fiance confronts Sarah Connor. We have, again, like talking about some of these science fiction things within Terminator. Our female Terminator is taking ballet lessons, and she's struggling to become more human. She's struggling to have a soul. She's struggling, to find herself, where John Connor strictly speaks to her as if she's a machine. And, and we have these ideas where, the Terminators infiltrate, they get inside. And, this is done with various levels of success, throughout the entire franchise, because we really don't know. They say the Terminators are infiltration units, but they're more or less like, they get inside of a base. They get inside of a fortress. They get inside of something that's held up, and they burn it down. To me, that's what Terminator always meant, even from the first movie. But now, they're like undercover cops. They're undercover brother. So, we have like the female Terminator, teenage girl, gets friends with John Connor in the beginning. He's upset that when he finds out that the girl he maybe kind of liked is a Terminator. So it's a little bit of that, okay? I don't think any of that takes away from the show, though, because it just takes the idea further. It takes it in a separate direction. And that is what you do with a science fiction franchise. You cannot have strict continuity within Terminator because of the time travel. And, this is a part of like what I mean about Terminator 2 T2. Terminator 2 Judgment Day closes the loop, and every single thing we have after that, including Battle Across Time, which was made by James Cameron, every single idea that they have for a T2 sequel is just an idea. It's a hypothesis. It's a theory. It's something put into action so we can hold it in our hand and then judge like how well of a follow-up it is or what they do. But in no way does it connect to the other ones. I think the biggest issue with this show, it's too heavy. It's too heavy on the continuity. It really needed to separate itself, because I said to myself a few times, if I didn't know Terminator as well as I do, I would not have picked up some of the plot devices and the story elements, the references. Like they don't really give you a full explanation of who Sarah Connor is, who John Connor is. They don't give you a full explanation of the other movies. They had to do it, or they should have retold those two movies very early within the series, or they should have did something with it. If you were not aware of all the Terminator tropes and all the Terminator mythology and chronology, this show does fall flat in a lot of areas. It's hard to follow. That could be what eventually led to the show's downfall and disinterest, or people just didn't want it. At the end of the day, they just didn't want a Terminator show. Not a big deal. But look, everyone, for AKAPAD's Audio Audacity podcast, find me on Twitter at AKAPAD. I am Peter A. DeLuca, and thank you so much for joining me. We're rocking and rolling here. Next up is Genesis, and getting to, real quick, Dark Fate. Dark Fate is nearly out of every single theater within Philadelphia. So I'm not sure what to do. I really don't know what to do. I don't know if I can watch the movie. So the Dark Fate episode might just be like a Terminator, catch-up episode or something. I don't know. Or like a Terminator up until now. Or like a Terminator Dark Fate box office analysis, which is not pretty. But I don't think anyone wants to listen to that. Like, what are my overall views of Terminator? I couldn't make that the Dark Fate episode. I don't know. I'm a little upset by it, but it just got destroyed at the box office, and everyone's already moved on to other movies, and we're approaching award season, so we're getting an influx of contenders. So there's newer movies to divide the audience every single week to some of these smaller theaters and smaller screens. So look, I'm gonna do my best. I'm still gonna try and watch it. So I'll keep you updated. Thanks for joining me. Rock and roll, and until next time.